As we speak, countries around the world prepare for what is seen as one of the most crucial international climate negotiations, the Conference of Parties, or COP. For almost 3 decades now, COPs have been annual meetings that take place as global response to the climate emergency. The first such COP was held in 1995, and this year's will be the 26th summit of the negotiations. These are the supreme decision-making body for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. This convention, signed in 1992, signaled countries' first acknowledgement of human contribution to greenhouse gases and the fact that it's a common concern for all mankind. The official website of COP26 says that this year's event will be the world's best last chance to get runaway climate change under control. To understand why, we need to go back 6 years in time. During the COP of 2015 held in Paris, countries vowed to work together to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and aim for 1.5 degrees. Apart from this, they decided to work towards adapting to the changing climate and to make funding available for delivering on these aims. Each country then committed to put together nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, which are plans by each country to reduce their own emissions. This watershed negotiation was the Paris Agreement of 2015. In the same agreement, countries also decided that they would come back with an updated plan to reflect the possible emissions every 5 years. COP26 would be this 5-year meeting, which has already been delayed by a year due to the pandemic. The negotiations for early November are around 4 main goals. First, to secure global net zero by mid-century and keep 1.5 degrees within reach. Second, to adapt towards protecting communities and natural habitats. Third, to mobilize finance towards the first 2 goals. And fourth, to work together in collaboration to reach these aims. Now, since 1995, what has been India's contribution to the COP?
I think India has always strived to play the role of an equalizer within the COP processes, right, between the developed and the developing countries. It has always tried to take on a leadership position on the behalf of many other developing countries, who perhaps have not had the capacity or not been given the sort of space, that a country the size of Indian democracy manages to get within these processes. And I think keeping that in mind, of course, I think the role has changed and transitioned and grown in various ways, just the way our own country also has, right? So we've gone from being, a developing country to emerging into an emerging economy as we're now known, with a sizable population, a sizable industry, and a sizable political economy around climate change ourselves. So we had put forward 3 targets to the global community, which included, a reduction in our emissions intensity. So that's the amount of emissions coming out per unit of GDP. And a second target was related to renewable energy or to non-fossil, power generation. And a third was related to our carbon sinks. And both on the emissions reduction as well as on our non-fossil targets, we're actually well on our way to surpassing them by the set target date of 2030. The one that we've not fared as well in is in our carbon sinks, but those are also a lot harder to sort of account for in terms of the accounting mechanisms and the provisions that you need of the data. In 2021, it's really important for us to take a step back and think about the Kyoto Protocol and the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, which were legally, the climate agreements that were supposed to create the ecosystem for climate mitigation till 2020. it's very important in 2021, as the Paris Agreement comes into force, to understand what were we supposed to have achieved by 2020 and did we actually achieve that. And unfortunately, it's an absolute resounding no. We have not met our climate finance targets. We have not met our emissions reductions target. We have hardly been able to figure out, what that global goal for adaptation, risk, and resilience can actually look like, internationally. So while it's great that countries are upping their ambition, up to 2050, I think it's very important for a country like India to take a strong stance at COP26 and point a finger to the countries that had committed to creating a certain degree of emission reductions within their own portfolios and holding them accountable, in asking what are we supposed to do about it.
India is experiencing the same kind of things that other developing countries are experiencing. Lack of availability of global finance, international finance, which was supposed to come in form of public grants. It was supposed to be public money, but most of it is in form of loans and debt. So access to finance, the kind of promises, NDC promises that India has made, its own assessment said that it will need about $1.7 trillion up to 2030 to complete these NDC actions. Now, where is this money going to come from? What I've been hearing is that mostly it's going to be about Article 6, probably some bit on climate finance and adaptation. And of course, common time frame is a discussion that people would want to, the COP would want to get done with, because it's been going for now 2 years. And mostly issues will be the ones, those are of interest to developed nations, because apparently they decide the agenda. And they will certainly try and focus more on the issues where they want the ball moving. Developing countries will most certainly try and ensure that they get more finance, that they get people to talk about adaptation. Debate always stops at $100 billion. Even for the old NDCs, and 40% of the tasks, climate actions listed under these NDCs, the UN number says that we would at least need around nearly $6 trillion. Now, $100 billion is nothing in front of it. So I think finance is going to be a huge bit going forward. How developed nations act sometimes in these negotiations is, in the lack of a better word, they sometimes bully. They sometimes come up with provisions which are not originally written in the proposals, though those are being discussed. In the latest GCF meeting that concluded last month, there was a direct access entity. These entities actually access funds from GCF, and then they disburse in their own nations. So there was this African bank which had applied for reaccreditation. Now, no rule in GCF says that any unilateral action can be applied. There's no provision in GCF to say that for a bank to be reaccredited, it will have to promise a net zero target by 2030, or it will have to promise deep decarbonization path, or it will have to move its finances away from all coal. It's given that eventually all the developing nations will do so, but you can't impose these and make these conditions for you to access climate finance. And that's what is happening. Sometimes provisions like these are being forced upon developing nations, and they have to gather together and fight about these issues, which are, blatant violation of simply CBDR principle and equity principle, basically.
There is nothing nothing legally binding about the Paris Agreement except that countries are supposed to report on how they are doing. I think accountability is key, and this particular COP is critical if we want to try and create some semblance of accountability in where we're at today. Otherwise, I think every country will continue to do what it needs to do domestically for climate change, but it won't necessarily lead to a global solution to this global challenge.